How do you become QA automation engineer or SDET engineer? I've created an 8-step action plan that you can follow to learn everything you need to learn to become an automation engineer. Automation engineer or SDET is an awesome career that's completely going to change your life. You are becoming an engineer, a software engineer, by taking a shortcut, by teaching yourself. And in this plan, there are 8 things you need to do. Basically, by the 3rd or by the 4th, you are already an automation engineer, but the goal is to become an SDET, a software engineer in test, because that's going to make you a lot more competitive. You're going to contribute more to the team, and more companies are going to want you. So the goal is not just to be an automation engineer, it's going to be an SDET, software engineer in test. All right. Most people think those are the same things. You couldn't. I mean, they kind of are, but at the same time, from my research, SDETs, they have more skills. They're more of the software engineers, right? QA automations, they focus on just testing. SDETs focus on overall software development. So that is what I'm going to try to get you to be. So here, I have the slides. I'm going to go through all 8 steps here in this video. I'm going to briefly explain what each step is, but then I'm going to create a single video for each of those steps, diving deeper, showing you examples and explaining why we need those things, what they are. Basically just, opening the curtains and showing you what each step is, in addition to just talking about it in this one video. If I talk about every single thing in detail in this video, it's going to be a little bit long. I also have the PDF available for you to download. It's going to be in the description. I have a page, a blog post that explains all those things. That is also in the description. So make sure you download the PDF and have it handy. It's going to be like a check mark for you as you go through the process. All right. So the 8 steps are: learn programming language. Obviously, that's the first thing. We'll talk about that. Learn the testing basics. Learn web testing tools like Selenium. Learn SQL, which is databases. Learn API testing. Now, at this point, by the time you are at step 5, you are an automation engineer for sure. But then you want to become an SDET, software engineer in test. Then you're going to learn Docker. You're going to learn CI/CD tool, at least one of the CI/CD tools, and we're just going to keep upskilling. The thing about this world is this never ends. Learning never ends. You're just going to keep growing, and keep learning. But it is so much fun. It is so awesome because every time there's new stuff that comes out, and you just got to keep learning. I really, really do enjoy that part. All right, so step 1 is learning a programming language. Okay, think about here, you and I right now, you're listening to me, you can understand me. Why do you understand me? Why are we able to communicate? Because you know the language, right? That's the most basic thing. If you did not know the language, there's nothing you can do, honestly, right? Nothing you can do on YouTube or whatever platform you're watching this. You can't really consume that unless you know one of the languages. In this case, it happens to be English, right? So the basic requirement is English, so you can communicate with me and we can work together, right? So the same thing, when you're becoming an automation engineer, the first thing is a language. You got to know some kind of programming language so you can automate stuff with that language. So my recommendation obviously is going to be Python. Right now in 2025, Python is the hottest thing, not just in automation. The thing about Python is it's everywhere, right? It's in web development. It's the biggest thing in AI. Most AIs, almost all AI is really Python, because AI is kind of like data science. It is all Python. So when you're learning Python to become an automation engineer, you are actually setting yourself up to become anything. You're not constrained to be an automation engineer. You're going to work on AI related small scripts. You're going to automate parts of your life that are not QA. You can get into data science. You can get into cloud engineering, right? DevOps, AWS and Azure and things like that. All of those are done with Python. So learning Python not only sets you up for QA automation role or QA automation career, it really just makes you a programmer, and it just opens up a lot of doors. So there's no question about that. But that's not the only choice. That is the best choice. In addition to the reasons that I just explained, the other reason is it's the easiest language to learn, right? To me, that's not even debatable. I don't think anybody can come and say, oh, this other language is easier to learn than Python. Python is the most user-friendly language out there. So if you're going to start learning, you might as well start with Python. Now, in the QA world, the 3 popular languages are Java, Python, and JavaScript. By the way, Java and JavaScript are completely different. They have nothing in common other than they're all languages. So Java, Python, and JavaScript are really popular in this industry. JavaScript is really hard. Java is hard. Python is easy. I mean, easy is a relative term. It's easier, right? So in the job market, the Java, I have some data. In fact, I did some scraping and looked at how often those words show up. Java does show up slightly higher than Python, but the learning curve of Python is way easier than Java. So just because Java has a little bit more jobs, are you going to really give up that much easier learning curve? No, right? I wouldn't. At least personally, I wouldn't. So I do recommend Python. Start with Python. All right. So I'm going to create the next video. I'm going to create it specifically on Python. I'm going to show you examples of Python, why we use it, what you need to do to learn it, how to learn it, tips and tricks. tricks. I'm a Python guy. I've been doing Python for about 11 years now. So that is my language. And the next video I'm going to create, I'm going to break down each of those steps, and that's going to be Python, right? Then the next thing after you learn the language is going to be testing basics. Now, some people are going to argue with me. If you want to be an automation engineer, you're going to say you got to learn testing basics first. You got to learn manual testing first. They have a point, but I don't agree. I totally don't agree, but you know, we can debate on it. We can talk about it. They're not wrong, not at all. They're not wrong at all. The way I see it is a programming language takes practice. It's like a sport. It's just like you learning to play football, basketball, soccer, or anything. You just got a lot of repetition. The concept of testing, manual testing, and testing in general is a lot of terminology. It's a lot of art. It's very artistic, coming up with test cases, how to test this, how to come up with, how to test it, the documenting and stuff. It's a lot of art. The coding part takes a lot more time. So the way I see it is you learn how to code, which will never stop. You always have to practice. And once you learn the basics and you are practicing, then you start to go into manual testing and memorize terms. Start learning how to test, what is testing. It's a lot of terminology. Manual testing is a lot of terminology. So my goal is, since coding takes a lot of time, you start with the coding, and while you practice coding on the side or later on, you're going to start to memorize manual testing. Those memorization really is not for the job. It is for interviews, right? Honestly, like on the job, who uses those words? Nobody uses those words, and who cares? But in interviews though, you got to define words. You got to explain what those words mean. So you definitely do need to study it, but the point is for really interviews. So the next thing is basics. Again, I'm going to create a whole video about where to go, how to study that. For that one, I actually do have a free course, completely free, software testing fundamentals. I will give you all the basics that you need. You can just go to my website. Of course, the link is in the description. You can start there. It will give you an overall idea of what software testing is. It's like 14 plus courses, not just a little preview. It's a real course, and it's totally free. You can check that out if you want, but we're going to get into the detail in a different video. All right, so step number 3 is web testing tools. So we are testing, right? We are automation engineer. We are automating tests. And one of the first things you're going to learn is web testing websites, right? A lot of applications. So they're called web apps. When somebody says app, they don't necessarily mean mobile apps. It can be web apps, right? If you go to like facebook.com, amazon.com, those are, we used to say websites, but these days they are web apps because they do a lot of things. So you're going to learn testing web applications. There are specific tools for that. The most popular one is Selenium. There's another one that is really gaining popularity, which is Playwright, but Selenium is still the top dog. Like, it runs the show for sure. But definitely Playwright will catch up eventually, because people just don't want to migrate, because migrating from Selenium to Playwright when you have thousands of tests is a big project. But Playwright is awesome. So I highly recommend you start with Selenium, because the job market looks for Selenium, even though Playwright is becoming popular. So you're going to learn tools like that, Selenium, Playwright, or Cypress, which is JavaScript specific. And the reason you got to learn languages first is all those tools work with a language. The way you use Selenium, it was a programming language. You can use it with JavaScript, you can use it with PyTest, you can with Python, you can use it with Java, Ruby. There's several languages that it supports. So you got to learn the language, then you're going to use the tool. So in that case, you're going to learn how to test websites, any kind of e-commerce website, social media website, anything that has a website that opens in a browser, you're going to learn how to test it. All right, so that's step 3. Step 4 is SQL. SQL is structured query language. It just means databases. This is a language you learn to read and write data from the database. When you're testing something, applications use database. Whenever you use an application, most likely that information comes from a database. So when you create something, it gets stored in the database. So when you're testing it to make sure the application works, you have to make sure the database, like whatever you do here, gets stored in the database correctly. You have to prepare test data in the database. So you have to work with the database, whether you are automation or manual. This is true for everybody. So you got to learn SQL. Thankfully for us, it's easy. SQL can be really hard or really easy, and for us testers, we just need the basics. So SQL is a must, and the thing about SQL is it's independent. You don't need another language, you don't need testing, you don't need anything. You could learn that. In fact, if I wanted to, I could put this at step 1, because there is no prerequisite to learn SQL. So at any time in your journey, you can learn SQL, but I do recommend learning it before the next one, which is API testing, because a lot of times when you're doing API testing, you do work with the database. So API testing is after web testing. We talked about testing the browser. Now we're talking about testing the backend, right? So when we say an application backend, usually it's API, but not necessarily. It can be serverless and all kinds of other kind of setup for the backend of the application, but most of the time it's API. So we're just going to focus on API. So we're going to say API testing. So that is basically how two computers developers or two softwares talk to each other. When you go to a website and you click on place order, that order gets sent over to the backend. And the way it gets sent over to the backend is most likely via an API. So when you're doing API testing, you're testing if that communication works. And it is really popular because when you think about it, every website has a backend. Right? Not every backend has a website. There's tons of backend. There's a tons of software that works that doesn't has a graphical user interface that just does its thing, its magic in the back. So there's going to be a lot more jobs testing the backend because there's a lot more software that's just the backend. So it's not negotiable. You got to learn APIs. The good thing is it's one of the easiest ones. Like especially once you get used to it. At first, you're not used to using APIs, so it might seem like that's a hard one. It's complicated, and you think about the front end because you always use websites. You think testing websites is easier, but trust me, after a little bit of experience, you're gonna love the backend. I love the backend because it's much more stable. It is fast. It's easy to understand. It is just so awesome. So the point is, don't get intimidated, and that will be step number 5. You are going to learn how to do API testing. You're going to take courses for that. Now, once you're here, right, you already know programming language, you already know testing basics, you already know how to test the front end, you already know how to test the back end, and you know databases. So right now you are an automation engineer. You are done. You are literally qualified for most jobs. You can apply for software testing jobs, automation jobs, not just software testing jobs, automation jobs. You know how to automate. You know how to automate the front end, you know how to automate the back end. So you are a QA automation engineer at this point. Now, how do we take it to the next level, which is SDET, software engineer in test? Now, testing the application is one thing. Knowing how the infrastructure works, how does the application work, CI/CD, how does the application go from the developer's computer to the server where the public can access it? What is the process like? As QAs, what is our role in that process? Where do our tests play a role in this process, right? We are a very major part of that process. The developer writes the code got to go through some process and be available for the public in some kind of server. It got to be deployed to a server, and our tests are in the middle of that process. When the code is written, before it gets deployed, it got to be tested. So when it gets tested, we are the ones. The code we wrote, if we do manual testing, we manually test it. But majority of the time, you have automated tests. In that process, the automated test will test it. That's the whole point. So you want to become a software engineer focusing in test, aka SDET, software development in test. Now that's the next step. So you're going to learn this tool called Docker. I don't want to get into it right now because it's going to be confusing, but Docker is just so awesome. It's just how applications work these days. All new startups for sure would have Docker. Even old companies, they are migrating to Docker. It makes life easier for developers. It just makes things a lot easier, how things get deployed, how applications run. Docker is basically like, it's a way to containerize. You're creating like a little computer inside of your computer. People that know Docker in depth are going to be mad at me for that, but you can visualize it like that. You can just create your own little environment where you can run your application inside of it. It doesn't make sense to get into that right now, but it's some technology you got to learn. It is quite simple. You're probably going to have to invest maybe 4 or 5 days on that because you got to work on projects, not just about watching videos. But you're going to learn Docker. That's going to be the base for everything going forward. Okay. So after Docker, you're going to learn a CI/CD tool. And the reason you learn Docker first is because CI/CD tools use Docker a lot. It's possible to use CI/CD tools without Docker because CI/CD has been around for a long time. Docker is fairly new, but nowadays all CI/CD tools just leverage Docker a lot because, like I said, Docker just makes life easy. You're gonna love it. I definitely do love that. So you're gonna learn one of the CI/CD tools. Again, the process of taking code from the developer all the way to the server using Git and all of that. That is CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous development. That's what CI/CD stands for. And our test is in the middle of that. So we have to know how that stuff works. So there's a lot of tools. Jenkins being the most popular one, still it's the old school, the top dog, but still old school. And then we have GitHub Actions, fairly new, awesome. And GitLab CI. I have a lot of familiarity with GitLab CI and Jenkins, and I'm learning GitHub Actions right now, which is very easy if you already have a background in CI/CD. So I'll learn Jenkins again, and I'm going to create another video that I scraped a bunch of jobs. I scraped like 500 jobs and counted words to see which word appears more often, right? Is Selenium more popular than Playwright? Is Jenkins more popular than GitHub Actions? I want to see if job posts have those words. Which one should my students learn, right? I wanted to do that research instead of just guessing. I did that, and Jenkins is way more popular than any of the other CI/CD tools still in 2025. So I highly recommend you start with the Jenkins course. Again, watch out for that video. I'll probably put it in the description. I have not created it yet, where I'll show the data that I scraped. It's not my opinion that you have to learn Jenkins. It's the data that shows you the job market is looking for Jenkins. All right, so that is step 7. At this point, you are already an SDET, a software engineer in test, and you just got to keep upskilling. After this, really, it all depends on your interest, what you want to do, which part of out of everything we've done so far, which part is more interesting to you? You're going to keep learning more tools. That will never end. Trust me, that will never end. You're just always going to be learning. New stuff is always coming up, especially now with AI. A lot of newer stuff are coming up a lot faster. So you're going to keep learning. One of the things you can do is you can go into mobile testing. It's a smaller niche, or niche, whatever you say. But it's a smaller one, but you want to go into that. Definitely. I wouldn't say smaller, actually. That's probably not the right thing to say. It's pretty big. But web testing is much more bigger. That's probably why I said that. So you can go into mobile testing. You can go into performance testing or load testing, which is awesome thing to do. You can pick up another framework. When you're learning the web testing, right? Step 3, like web testing tool, Selenium or Playwright or something, you are going to learn some kind of framework along with it. You might learn robot framework. You might learn PyTest, unit test, something that goes with that language, test ng if you're doing Java. So you're going to learn some framework. Now you can just pick up another framework. It's going to be so much easier. Once you learn one framework, picking up another framework is going to be so much easier. You're just going to keep growing and keep growing and keep growing and start using AI. AI is one of the biggest things. I did not put it here because AI by itself is nothing. Right? AI is a tool. You need to apply it to something. You learn how to do front-end testing, then you're going to be like, okay, I know how to do front-end testing. How do I use AI to do front-end testing? How do I use AI to make my front-end testing faster, better, more efficient? You learn back-end testing. Oh, how do I use AI to do my back-end testing? But if you don't know back-end testing at all, AI is not going to help you. You got to know the basics first, right? It's true when you're learning programming. You're going to learn how to code without using AI. I mean, you can use AI as a support, like asking questions and solving problems and things like that. You're not going to have AI write the code for you. If you have AI write the code for you, then you're not learning at all. So that's why I did not bring AI as the main focus of this, but obviously AI is the main focus of everything we do going forward, okay? I'm not being ignorant when it comes to that. All right, so these are the things you got to do. So make sure you watch the whole playlist. I'm going to break down everything using examples and showing you exactly how it is applied, so you can see what it is. And you're not only looking at the term, what is SQL, what is web testing, but what does it look like? So my goal is to break down each one of those things into individual videos. I also have a 1-hour video that just talks about the whole QA automation. What do we do? I'll also put that in the description. Make sure you check that out if you want to. Yeah, so good luck. I'm sure you got this. The only thing is focus. All of this is easy on paper, but to actually find the time, dedicate the time, is what's the challenging part. It is easy. Well, it is simple, not easy. It's not easy because the focus. You gotta focus. You gotta do a lot of work, right? People tell you, oh, 1 month you got this. Nah, man, they're trying to sell you stuff. So of course I'm selling stuff too. I have an amazing program. I have like a whole membership. You get everything. Actually, I have courses literally for everything that I talk about here, plus more. But you don't have to take my course, not at all. But definitely I do recommend you to check it out. If you want to work with me one-on-one directly, a one-on-one coaching, we can do that. I have a program where you and I can work together as partners. I will coach you throughout the entire process, right? It's like a 6 months program, but that's customizable if you want to. But within 6 months, I can get you to be in SDET, assuming you do the work. So check it out. All the links are in the description. I run supersqa.com. If it's your first time here, make sure you give the video a like, subscribe to the channel. And my name is Adam Askunfu if you haven't met me before, but check me out, check out my website, and watch the rest of the playlist. You're going to learn a lot about how to become a software engineer in test, which is an awesome career. So check out the video right here on the right side, on the left side, wherever it shows up. I'll see you on the next one.